my name's Beth Heile, here again at Cat and Mouse Game Store, and I'm here to do a rules overview of the new game Libertalia, which is published here in the United States by Asmodee Games. Libertalia is a pirate plundering adventure where hopefully you're going to collect the right combination of treasures to gain you the most doubloons, because the player with the most doubloons is going to be the winner. This game is for 2 to 6 players. It takes about an hour. I was really fascinated when I first read the rules. It's got some interesting and quirky mechanics. So let's open up the box and take a look. The first set of setup is everyone is going to choose a pirate team, which is all themed in a different color. The game includes these tokens, which allow you to randomly choose the color of your team. Once you've determined that, you're going to draw the layer of that color, take 10 money, the deck that is also themed in that color, and finally you'll put the token of your color on the scoreboard. Now, once everyone has the appropriate amount of things that go with their team, you are going to lay out a number of treasures that represent this first week of plundering. There are 6 spaces here, because on the 7th day we rest. And you're going to put out 1 treasure token for each for the amount of players. So I have 6 boxes here. In a 4-player game, I'm going to put 4 treasures in each box. So you will always fill all 6 boxes, but the amount that goes in them is dependent on the number of players. Now let's talk about setting up your deck. Starting with the youngest player, that player is going to draw 9 cards at random off the top of their color-coded deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now from those 9 cards, they're going to reveal those characters to the table. Each player is then going to go into their deck and find an identical set of 9 characters. And you can do so by looking at the number and the name. Everyone has the same set of cards. They're only just color-coded. That's the only difference. So once everyone has the exact same set of 9 pirate-themed characters, we're now ready for the first turn to begin. But I am just going to label a few parts of the board of where your cards are going to go, because they're very specific locations. First of all, any cards that we haven't drawn yet, we're just going to create a personal deck, and they actually recommend putting your little player token right on top just so you don't peek by accident. As you play cards in this game, you're going to first be putting them up on the boat, but then once they're done, you're going to drag them down here to your lair, which is just the area above your lair here. We're going to call that the den. Those characters might be able to help or hinder you later this round. Finally, as characters are discarded, and other cards will specifically say discard a character, that character is going to go down here to the opposite side, and that becomes your player cemetery. And we're going to keep those in a specific location as well, because we may end up using those for different powers as well. Now we're ready to hopefully divvy up some treasure for our first day of plundering. Every player is going to choose a card from their 9 cards in their hand and place it face down on the table. Once everyone is ready, we'll reveal those cards, and we're going to put them in number order from smallest to biggest. Now, if there is a tie, as in the case that 2 players here have chosen the first mate, then we're going to break the tie using the silver number at the bottom. So the number 4 recruiter goes first, then my number 22, the surgeon, and now we have 2 first mates, but one has a number 1 at the bottom and one has a number 3 at the bottom. So the larger number is going to break the tie, and the most powerful, largest value card should always be over here on the right. Now we're going to resolve some special powers. As we're getting ready to collect our booty for the first day, there are 4 symbols that you will see across the different character cards, and I've placed them in the order that they resolve in. So the first symbol is the daytime symbol. This will resolve right after we've revealed our cards and laid them out in number order on the boat. So that's what we're going to be doing next. The Dusk card happens when we're getting ready to each divide and take a piece of booty from the bottom of the board. The Night card happens right after we've divided our booty, and we're now dragging our pirate card off the boat and into our den, face up where everyone can see it. And finally, the anchor symbol here only happens at the end of the round or the end of a week. So we have 6 days in our week, and this would be sort of the thing that happens on the 7th day. It's when we're doing some tallying of scores at the end of a round. So now let's go back to the boat and take an idea of what some of these daytime powers will look like. Let's take a moment to look at examples of some of the pirate character cards, and I've especially laid out those that have a daytime power with the sun symbol here. So these are going to resolve first from lowest number to highest number value, and this happens before you're going to split up the treasures that you laid out on the bottom of the ship. So, for example, Parrot, which is the number 1, you discard this card, so you're going to put that in your graveyard, that discard spot, and then you get to play another character from your hand, and you get to put it in its appropriate place in the number lineup on the ship. So basically, it allows you to see what everybody else played and then play something else that maybe would fit better based on the other player's actions. Another example, the Carpenter, right now you lose half your doubloons. You might say, well, why do I want to do that? I want doubloons, that's how I win the game. Well, at the very end of this week, end of this round, you're going to gain 10 doubloons. So if you lose less than that now, you will hopefully gain a lot more later. And finally, the Brute. You're going to discard the character with the highest rank in the ship. Hopefully it's not your own. And hopefully it's not the Brute, hopefully it's somebody else, and you can force them to get rid of their card and whatever power would go along with it. So now we're ready to resolve any cards that have daytime powers, and you'll see that there's this big daytime symbol with arrows that move from left to right. So any cards that have a daytime symbol, we're going to start here on the left side of the board and work our way to the right. And there are 2, the Recruiter and the Resurgent. So the Recruiter's power would trigger first. That allows you to take a card into your hand from your den. Those are cards that are face up that you've already played. And then my Surgeon here, which allows me to take one of my discarded characters back into my hand. So, and unfortunately it happens to be no other daytime cards here. So daytime is now done. Now we're going to divide up our treasure, and that is the Dusk power. And now we're going to start here at the right hand side, and we're going to work our way to the left. So the player who played this green first mate, the green player, is going to have first dibs at the treasure, followed by red, yellow, and white. If there are any cards that have that Dusk symbol on them, then that power would activate at that time, usually when you're about to select the type of booty that you want. Now, because this is the first day, we're going to be selecting here from the first box only, and theoretically there's one for each of us, although cards are definitely going to affect that. Once we've divvied up all 4 of those treasures, we will then take these cards and put them down into our den face up. Remember, you are not discarding them. They move from your ship to your den. And now we'll be ready to start the new day and a new round to divvy up the treasure here in the second box. We're going to repeat that process until we get to the end of the board here and we divvied up all the treasure for 1 week. Now, just a reminder, at the end of each day, you're going to be taking that card from the boat and placing it here in your den, face up. At this point, any cards that have a night symbol are going to activate because we're literally at the nighttime portion of our day or of our turn. So in this case, the barkeep allows me to gain 1 doubloon, which I would just put here with my pile of money. You'll notice that the treasure that I've accumulated, we are going to keep face down. So my fellow players will not be able to exactly predict how much money I'm going to earn from those. And now we're ready to proceed on to day 2, and so on through all 6 days. The first step of this end of round scoring is to figure out how many doubloons we have. First, we're going to start with our treasures. These are the treasures that we acquired, hopefully 1 from each day in our 6-day looting spree. The values of these treasures are explained beautifully here on the top of your pirate layer, so I'm not going to go over that in detail. They're really easy to figure out. The only exceptions are these 2 red ones, the Saber and the Spanish Officer. These have no value here at the end of the round, although each of them do have a special power. They force you to lose one of your characters or one of your neighbor's characters, respectively, and that happens right when you acquire these tokens. But you're going to leave them with your other tokens right up until the end of the round, just to make it a little bit harder for your neighbors to remember what treasures you're collecting. So the value of these treasures is going to be represented here on the scoreboard. So we'll put those aside. Then you're going to figure out the value of your cardboard money here, and we're going to put that on our scoreboard. Finally, you're going to figure out if any of the characters in your den, which have this green anchor symbol, and you're going to figure out what award you should get for these characters. For example, the first mate gives you a doubloon for each other character in your den, including itself. So we would then award ourselves that amount. And now we're done with scoring for the end of the round. Now here's where things get a little bit tricky. We're going to reset all of the items that you see in front of you. So any cards in my den, in my graveyard, are all going to be put aside. They will never be used for the rest of the game. We're also going to put aside all the money, and you're going to re-deal out 10 money to each player. So at the start of every round, each player just resets back to 10 money. Because remember, if you've acquired more money throughout the round, you've just added it to your scoreboard here. This is akin to putting your treasure in a chest and burying it in the sand. It's banked. Finally, you're going to take all of your treasures here, including the red ones, and add them back to the bag. Now we're ready to start a new round. Starting the next round is similar to starting the beginning of the game. Each player needs to create a set of 9 cards. Now you should have 3 cards left over from the first round. We use 6, 1 per day in our first week of looting, and people should have 3 left over. Of course, between players, what 3 cards you have left over might be different. But we're going to fill back up to 9 in the same way that we did before. So I need to draw 6 more cards from my deck here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then from those 6, I'm going to call off those numbers to the other players. They're going to fill up the rest of their hand with exactly these 6. So starting the second round, all players will have 6 cards that are exactly the same, and 3 cards that were some combination from the first set. Again, just a reminder that everyone will start with a new set of 10 doubloons. And now we're ready to start the second round. And the third round is going to proceed exactly the same. And the person who has the most doubloons on the scoreboard by the end of the game will be the winner. Well, I hope you enjoyed that rules overview of Libertalia. Anything else you can't figure out, you should be able to find well explained in the rules. There's also a breakdown of every single pirate card in the rule book as well, which is really useful for tweaking out the specifics of the different powers and the timing as well. Now, Libertalia is very much a game of timing. You want things to happen in the right order. And to do that, you're going to need to predict what the other players at the table might going to pick on their turn. So along those lines, I have 3 recommendations for games where you really have to try and predict your other players' moves. The first one is Steve Jackson's Revolution. This also plays in about an hour, and people are blindly bidding on different areas, and we all reveal at the same time. If you're the only person to choose an area, then you get it for your bid. However, if 2 people bid on the same area, then the better bid is going to get it. So you really need to predict where someone might place a bid. Second, we have Pergamon, which is about excavation in archaeology and then putting together museum displays to present in the Pergamon Museum. This is also a game very much of timing, because to get the right combination of money and the access to the dig site depends on what your bid is to be able to get the right placement over the other players. So, all in the same lines. And finally, Libertalia also had sort of a backwards thinking quality to it. Sometimes you want to be first, sometimes you want to be last. On that thought, you might want to check out Last Will, which is a game in which you're trying to lose all your money. It's very much a backwards thinking game. It also has a similar time feel to it compared to Libertalia. There's only 7 turns in this, there's only a couple weeks in Libertalia, and so you really have to figure things out very fast, get your engine going, and before you know it, the game is over. So if you like games that have an interesting sideways twist to your thinking, then check out any of those 3, and we hope you take a look at Libertalia.